how Canadians feel about Trump's tariffs from a real Canadian.
The plan of which you have authored, and you made the case in the Wall Street Journal. I want to just take a step back here, and how are Canadians processing all of this between our...
Okay, before we get into it, my thoughts. Let's see if I'm right or no. Well, obviously you're gonna have two camps or two parties of Canadians, obviously liberals, conservatives, right? Some of them, mostly liberals, will think Trump is behind everything that's happening in Canada right now, which is obviously not true. Because who has been in power? Liberals. For how long? 9 years, 9.5. So obviously it can't be all Trump's fault, right? The second camp will be, I would say they still think it's not fair what's going on with tariffs and everything, but they don't blame Trump for everything, and they understand that he's just trying to do what's best for US. So yeah, that's my guess. One camp thinks everything's Trump's fault, and one camp is kind of logical about it, understanding that Trump is just tip of the iceberg. So let's see if I'm correct or no.
Two countries.
Well, the Liberal Party of Canada, they've decided that it's easier to run against Donald Trump in the next election than to run against the Canadian Conservative leader.
Who does it remind you? Trump run against Trump. So it reminds me of liberals or Democrats in the US, right? Their whole election was based on how Trump is bad, how he's such a bad person. They didn't even go to how he damaged US or anything. Not like I think that he damaged US, but they tried to make it look like it's gonna be his first term, right? Because they didn't have any examples. So liberals or Democrats in the US based the whole election on Trump is bad, we're good. Don't ask us how, but we are. Even though they ran the country, in this case US, down for 4 years. And I just hope and pray that the Canadians will see through it exactly like Americans did. And yeah, like it's gonna sound funny to say, but I hope the Canadians will be as smart as Americans were. Just see through the bullshit, like who ran the country down, who ran the country in general, liberals, right? So are you gonna vote for change, or are you gonna go with the party that's saying, oh, we didn't do anything bad, it's all Trump, the Trump that has been in power for almost 2 months now? It's ridiculous, right? So yeah, we'll see.
In the next election. So you've never seen a Canadian election like this before. All the Liberals are talking about is Trump. And by the way, Trudeau is gone now, but we've got Trudeau 2.0, a guy named Mark Carney, who is even worse. He was on the board of the World Economic Forum.
I mean, to be fair, everyone's gonna be Trudeau something point something, right? Because it's still the same party, still a liberal party. The person will still represent liberals' interests. Like, I'm kind of new into this Canadian politics, how I found out it works differently than Europe or in the US. But there's still someone who's standing behind the prime minister, right? The prime minister still belongs to some party, so he still has to be loyal to that party, still represent their interests. So whoever's gonna come from Liberal Party is not gonna change it completely. Like, it's not gonna be 180 turn and now everything's good and screw liberals. No, it's still gonna be so the liberals will get re-elected and he's gonna get elected again. So again, new face, same party, same agenda. Like, say whatever you want. Like, yeah, Carney got rid of the carbon tax, but who knows if he's gonna bring it back? who knows what else he's gonna come up with, right? Because again, it was still an idea of Liberal Party.
He's got 3 passports. He's the ultimate globalist. He was the head of the state bank, the Federal Reserve. It's called the Bank of Canada. And then he went over to the UK and he headed the Bank of England. And while he was there, he was friends with Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's right-hand woman. So this guy is the worst. I don't even think he lives in Canada. His wife still lives in New York where she works. He was selected in a Kamala Harris style fake primary where foreign nationals were allowed to vote and children as young as 14.
What?
So this guy was installed and he's going straight to the top of the Canadian political food chain. And he has decided that running against America, running on an anti-America platform, and obviously anti-Trump is his way to win. Trouble is, that's terrible for ordinary Canadians.
Okay, I mean, to be fair, he still got elected somehow in the primaries, comparing to Kamala, that somehow she just became the new Biden or new candidate, right? But yeah, everything else he says is crazy. And however corrupted the primaries were, but it was still there somehow, right? So that's the difference between him and Kamala. But how is it possible that he has 3 citizenships and he becomes the prime minister of Canada? That's ridiculous. Like, that would not happen in the US. Like, how I understand it, prime minister is kind of on the level of president, right? Comparing to the US. And there's no way you would have a president of US who's not a citizen of just you. Well, you can't have dual citizenship, right? But like, president of US needs to be born in the US. And I mean, again, it's not like people voted Carney in. It was liberals, right? So we'll see on the true election. But yeah, friend with Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein. That's not a good connection. I know there's some controversy with Trump and his connections as well, right? But yeah, we can only hope people won't elect him again. I mean, this dude, Mark Carney.
Idiots.
But so explain this to me. Was this a party vote? What I mean, what exactly was the process here?
Yeah, Trudeau, for 9 years, he's been in so many scandals. People are sick of him. So he resigned and he said, I'm out of here as soon as the party chooses a successor to me. So they had an internal vote. But that internal vote is so fishy. 400,000 people registered to vote, but only 150,000 of those were qualified and certified and verified. So more than half of the votes were not qualified. What the heck was going on? And like I said, you didn't have to be a Canadian citizen to vote. And you didn't even have to be a grown-up. So 14-year-olds and foreign citizens chose our new prime minister, and he goes straight to the top. It would be as if Kamala Harris became president, but at least she was on a ballot in 2020. This is so undemocratic, and he doesn't have a mandate. He's down in the polls.
Okay, the mandate thing is crazy. It's pretty much just I don't want to say guy from the street, but he was Trudeau's advisor, but he wasn't in the politics like full on, right? He wasn't politician. But to be fair about the whole primary thing, I don't even feel that offended, because like how often in the Canadian history this actually happened, that the prime minister that the prime minister stepped down and then the political party decided who's going to be the next prime minister. Like, it's still going to be member of that party. Like, even though it's vote between liberals. It's not vote between all Canadians. So in the end, it's going to be, if you get Carney or Trudeau 3.0, it's still going to be liberal. Still gonna be same ideas, still gonna represent the same party. So I don't know, I don't feel that bad about primaries. Like that's how it works, unfortunately. And to be honest, it's super easy to vote in the primaries. All you need to do is register to be member of this and this political party, in this case liberal political party, and pay some fee, and then you can vote. And I guess maybe verify, like you need to submit some ID and whatever. Maybe that's what he means by that they were not verified. But yeah, it's super easy. And again, the only people who were able to vote for him were liberals. So, like, in this case, I would say blame the system. Don't blame the liberals, even though you can blame them for everything else, right? So if it wasn't this guy, it would be someone else.
And he knows that fighting with Trump will prick Canadians to come. He's playing Captain Canada. But the trouble is,
Ridiculous.
when you fight with Trump over economics, you're going to get hurt. It's just a fact. America is 10 times bigger than us.
Yeah.
And I'm really worried that there's what's called a moral hazard here, if you know.
Not just 10 times bigger, but the relationships they have and how many countries literally depend on them. Like, of course, they're gonna, worst case scenario, they're gonna side with US rather than Canada. Because, yeah, like, do you want to have a deal with someone size of US, or do you want to have a deal with someone size of Canada? I don't know. It's super easy to me. And yeah, how can you pretend to be Captain Canada when you were in charge of Bank of England, when you have 3 citizenships? Like, come on, dude. You literally don't know where your loyalty lands. Or, sorry, loyalty, yeah, where your loyalty is, right? And even if you think about the controversy he had, like he has some investment firm, and when Trump got elected, to avoid the tariffs, Mark Carney moved the headquarters from Toronto to New York. How is that screaming Captain Canada, right?
Know what I mean? Donald Trump is used to negotiating with people who want a deal, and Trump is the one who's not afraid to walk away. That's how Trump did it in New York City when he was a real estate developer. But in this case, Trump is the one who wants a deal, but it's in the Liberal Party's interest not to get one. They want the fight, and believe it or not, they want the economic damage that the fight will
They
cause,
don't care about people.
so they can blame Trump for our looming recession rather than their own economics. It's really the worst of times in Canadian politics. But more to the point, I hate the fact that we're fighting. It's like Batman and Robin are fighting. We're the junior partner. There's no doubt about it. But I think we've got a friendship and a respect, and like, I can't think of 2 countries that are better friends. And I'm worried that our liberal leaders are wrecking that just to win an election.
I think you're right. And look, I think all this is going to simmer down. I have great respect for Canadian patriots, not Trudeau, but the rank and file of Canadians have always been so
Not
decent
Trudeau.
and so good to us. And I think the 51st state thing is just a negotiation. But Ezra,
Well, 51st state is just to get under the skin of Canadians, right? Like, let's be honest, some of the Canadians are snowflakes, and it's gonna get under their skin, and they're gonna take it seriously, and it's gonna, like, they're gonna focus on 51st state and start hating Trump rather than what's going on in the Canadian politics, right? Like, again, it's super easy to focus on something else and blame someone else rather than look inside what's going on here and what Canadians can actually change on their own. Like, you have 2 political parties. One obviously didn't work these last 9 years. And so what are you going to do? Are you going to be insane and vote for that same party that doesn't work? You know, like, definition of insanity, do the same thing all over again and hope for the different outcome? Or are you going to try to vote for the other party, for the Conservatives? And to be fair, the Conservatives and their leader, Pierre Poilievre, like, if you listen to them, they have logic. They have a plan how to get us out of this shithole. And what does liberals have? Oh, Trump is bad. again, liberals and Democrats in the US looks same for this election, to be honest.
You make a good point here. Could an unintended consequence of President Trump trying to rebalance some of these trade deals that have been not great for our own country here, could he unintentionally help the liberal party here? Could an unintended consequence of President Trump saber rattling, which I support, could be installing a really bad government of Canada and therefore thwarting what looks to be an ascendant conservative correction?
I think so. And you're exactly right to say unintended consequence. I think Trump likes yanking people's chains like Justin Trudeau. And so many of us love to see it. But there was some collateral damage there. And so I thought, you know what, we need a plan. How do we put this in America first terms? Because Canadians know what we want. But that's not going to move the needle with President Trump. How can we rephrase this in a way that maybe the president will listen to? And here's my take at it. And I'm obviously a Canadian citizen, but I've been a Trump supporter 3 elections in a row. We're the only Canadian media outlet that endorsed Trump 3 elections in a row. And we paid a price for that, by the way, under Trudeau.
I bet.
So here's my best effort. And Charlie, you tell me if I've got any holes in my argument, because I'm trying to work this out. Here's my theory.
Okay, before we go with his theory, I heard, and I don't know if it's true, but I wouldn't be surprised, that Trump actually wants to deal with the conservative government of Canada. So in Trump's interest is for conservatives to be elected instead of liberals. And yeah, so what I heard might not be true, is that the beef is not just with Trudeau, but the beef is with liberals. And it kind of makes sense. Like, Trump sees what was going on here for 9.5 years, right? And he knows it's not only about just one person. Obviously, it's about Liberal Party. And yes, it sounds crazy, but if Trump is able to somehow help us to elect conservatives, and I don't mean cheating or anything like that, but just open the eyes of the Canadians. Like, look, what Trump is doing is just the tip of the iceberg. Just think how your life changed from, let's say, 2022, right after COVID, till now. Did it get better? No. Who was in power? Liberals. Oh, so is it really Trump's fault, how it looks right now? Like, to be fair, since Trump took over in the US in January, what was it, January 20th or mid-January, whatever, did the life in Canada get worse than it was before? I personally don't feel the difference yet. Don't get me wrong, I know it's going to get worse because of the tariffs, but yeah, I can't literally pinpoint like, oh, this is the breaking point. Like, since January, everything's going downhill. No, so how do you blame Trump? You blame him for something that did not even happen yet. It's ridiculous.
Opportunity won't wait. Don't miss your chance to own the metal powering the tech revolution. Silver isn't just shiny, it's indispensable. It fuels clean energy, drives electric vehicles, and powers cutting-edge tech innovation. Here's the catch. Global demand is skyrocketing, but supplies are dwindling. Visit noblegoldinvestments.com to invest in the metal that's shaping tomorrow's breakthroughs. As a bonus, open a qualified account and receive 2 5-ounce Silver America the Beautiful coins absolutely free. Silver powers progress, and progress powers your profit. Go to noblegoldinvestments.com.
Okay, so that was advertisement, and here we go about opinion.
The biggest source of that trade deficit that President Trump talks about is because we sell a huge amount of crude oil to the United States, much more than we sell auto parts or agriculture. And that's because although America produces a lot of oil, it still consumes more than it produces and exports. So Canada fills the void. And so you're not going to get tariffs fixing that. A tariff is good to move a Honda factory from Mexico to the States because you just move the factory. But Canada's oil comes from the oil
That's a good
sands in
take. Yeah.
Alberta, and you just can't move that. So a tariff is not going to move the oil to America. It's just going to make it more expensive for those U.S. refineries that buy it. But here's the thing. That oil, the Canadian oil sands, it's the third largest proven reserves in the world, just behind Saudi Arabia and Venezuela. And it's just sitting just north of Montana. And the premier of the province of Alberta, that's sort of like the Texas of
Danielle
Canada,
Smith. Yeah.
she's so pro-America. She went down to President Trump's inauguration. I don't know if you know that. She's so positive and upbeat. She has not given in to the
I wouldn't say she's pro-America. I would say she's logical and she's conservative, right? So, like, in my opinion, the life in Alberta is, yeah, like he said, like Texas of US. Like Alberta is Texas of Canada. You have the most freedom. It's still, like, you can still feel that Canadian culture. Like comparing to Ontario, you can't even see the Canadian culture over there. Like just the little things, like little chit chat, right? Try it in Toronto. No one cares. Everyone's rushing. Everyone's cold. Yeah, try that in Alberta. You're gonna spend an hour talking at the post office. It happened to me about 2 months ago. I was on the way to the gym before my shift, and I didn't go to the gym because I stopped at the post office and started talking to some Canadian there. And yeah, so like Alberta, I would say that's the most Canadian part of the Canada right now. But that's my opinion. And yeah, I feel like Danielle Smith, the premier of Alberta, I wouldn't say she's pro-American. Like, she's logical. She wants what's the best for Alberta, and that's good relationships with US, right? If she agrees with Trump, great. I would not say that she's in to become the 51st state. That's what I understand nowadays as pro-American. But yeah, like I said, she's logical, and I guess she agrees with Donald Trump a lot. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
Data style politics of Trudeau. She knows Americans are our best friends. And she told me, I met her when she was down there on the inauguration. She says she would love it if Alberta could double the amount of oil that's produced in the oil sands. So here was my thinking. Instead of pushing away the oil sands, pull it close. Don't tariff it. Buy it all. 170 billion barrels of oil. Even if Alberta doubled the production, that's enough oil to take care of all of America's import needs for the next 50 years. It's a $13 trillion deal. I would think of it sort of like a real estate deal, but much more valuable than Greenland or Panama. And the thing is, Donald Trump negotiated the USMCA, which has a special side letter on oil. And it allows America to get preferential access to our oil. So what I would say, if I was trying to talk to my America First friends, I would say, don't push this oil away. China is already sniffing around. China is already trying to buy the oil sands. Don't let them in. Take the oil. Don't tariff it. It's practically yours anyways. What I mean by that is the companies that pump that oil, that steam it and produce it, they're either American owned or they're Canadian with a lot of American investors. So it's sort of American on every side you look at it.
I mean, it makes sense. For me, being a Canadian resident, not a citizen, resident, I definitely hope they're not going to buy all, right? But then that's where the conservatives come in play. Is like, sell whatever extra you have. Because Canadians have their needs as well. Why should we buy the imported overpriced oil? So yeah, make the deal with US. That's gonna bring crazy profit to all of these refineries, possibly to Canada, right? But keep some of the oil for Canadians as well, so we all profit out of it. That's what I would hope for, and I don't know if Ezra is talking about sell everything, meaning like everything that Canadians won't use. But yeah, definitely it would be a good deal for Trump. Like the logistic of moving the oil from Canada to US is definitely much easier than bringing it from Venezuela or Saudi, right? And you don't want to give the oil to China.
Producers are American, the consumers are American refineries. Oh, Charlie, I forgot my favorite part. If you buy all your foreign oil from ethical oil in Canada instead of conflict oil from OPEC, you don't need to have.
So OPEC, if I'm correct, it's pretty much oil from Middle East. It's Saudi and some other countries that produce the oil. They have like this huge oil cartel, and they're selling the oil around the world. And that's the reason why we have expensive gas. Remember how the whole world put some sanctions on Russian oil and asked OPEC to produce more oil because the demand was higher, right? And they refused. I mean, obviously, it's about the profit, but at that moment, it was kind of immoral. Like the whole world is kind of suffering, and everyone thought that we're doing it for good reasons. Like, so we're gonna hurt Russia and help Ukraine, which is definitely a good reason, but it didn't work out in the end. See how it is? Like it, you didn't see Russia bankrupt. Like they're still going strong, right? But yeah, the OPEC didn't really help the rest of the world. So it would be definitely good to move away from them and use the Canadian oil.
Of the Fifth Fleet stationed in the Persian Gulf anymore. That's a $50 billion a year expense, let alone the risk of human life. The reason that
so
the
I guess
U.S.
the question
military...
is, Ezra, would Canada be willing to sell? I mean, is Canada, are they open to a deal?
Not liberals. They wouldn't, because they don't care about normal citizens. They just want to look strong. But conservatives, I believe they would be willing to sell. Because again, we're neighbors, right? We're like two brothers, US and Canada. Like we should have a good relationships. Like my hope in the future is that the Canada and the US will create something like European Union, but just two countries, right? That we're gonna have a free borders, like open borders. You don't need any visa, you don't need any work visa. You can work in Canada, you can work in US, wherever you want. The trade's gonna be super easy, tax is almost non-existent. You can have even kind of shared military. That's kind of a hard sell. I feel like the Canada would just pay US to maintain and expand the military, because US already has crazy military. Like they don't need Canada, right? But we're on one continent, pretty much next to each other. Canada's between US and Alaska, so why not have something like European Union, like Canada and the US? Make America great again, but not just the States, but the whole continent.
They already signed it under Donald Trump in the USMCA, and the Premier of Alberta said, I want to do it. She wants to double it. So keep the price low, because it's American consumers. Replace your Venice. Don't buy any more oil from Venezuela. Stop funding those guys. Don't buy any more oil from OPEC. Stop funding them. If you want to have your military in the Middle East on your own reasons, fine. But at least you won't have to do it to patrol your oil tankers. Alberta wants...
I mean, to be fair, like just buying the gas or oil from OPEC or Venezuela, you don't know who you're funding. In Canada, you know where your money goes. So it's kind of the morally better choice, and possibly the better choice for the future, because yeah, you literally know where the money goes.
Wants to sell it. The oil producers are ready to rock. Remember that Keystone XL pipeline? Joe Biden killed it on day one of his presidency. President Trump says he wants to revive it. That pipeline alone would bring 800,000 barrels of oil a day,
That's
which would
crazy.
replace a huge swath of OPEC oil. So, you know the old saying, don't get mad, don't get me even, get ahead. That's what I would say to America First people is get ahead. Don't be distracted by these liberals in Ottawa. By the way, they don't speak
Yeah.
for all Canadians. What do you really want when you say you want a 51st state? Do you really want 40 million people who in the Electoral College probably tilt a little bit Democrat? Do you really want the
Yeah.
French-English
A little
bilingualism?
bit.
What you really want is you want to hug
Do you really want
Canada
Quebec?
close, get the oil, don't let China get it. Let's do trade. Don't let Trudeau and now Mark Carney knock you off your goal. Your goal is prosperity and security. If you bring those oil sands close, you're doing both. And your question's a good one, Charlie. The answer is the deal is already there. The Keystone XL is half built. The premier wants to do it. Say yes to the oil sands.
Hold
Don't
that
be
thought.
Trudeau and Carney hate the
Let's-
oil sands.
I agree with all. I agree with all of that. Look, I got a lot of problems with the Canadian government. Whatever. I think that if we could negotiate some of the electricity stuff, get rid of some of the tariffs on American goods, love the oil deal. I think we should have all of our energy going after the Mexican drug cartels and the Chinese Communist Party. What would you say this is now resurrecting an otherwise unpopular Liberal Party?
It might be, because we're playing on people's emotions, right? With the whole 51st state, like for Trump, it might be a good move because when people are emotional, they might end up signing the worst deal, right? Than when they feel or when they think logically. But because of the liberals are in power right now and they're pretty much strict about, oh, we're not gonna become 51st state, oh, we don't like Trump, it's all Trump's fault. People hear on that. People are emotional. Like, people forget about, again, who was in power for the last 9 years, who ran it down actually. So we'll see. I still hope the Canadians will be logical and vote for change, vote for conservatives, because even if you listen to Pierre Poilievre, he doesn't want to become 51st state, but he understands it's just a joke, just something to get under the skin of Canadians. Like, it's not about it. It's about making a deal with US. Like, again, you live on one continent. You can hate US how much you want, but you're still gonna be neighbors. So don't you want to make it work? Like, stop being emotional, be logical, and even look into the history. And look who's to blame for the situation in Canada right now. And look who helped us before. Like, really? You want to go against the US? Like, it's not going to be good for Canada.
Unfortunately, and here's why. Let's say someone's happily married. Let's say there's a happily married woman, and a man comes up to her and says, hey, divorce him and marry me. Well, that's shocking. That's sort of a indecent proposal, as the old movie with Woody Harrelson put it. But and so a lot of Canadians are saying, whoa, when you're saying join America, that's sort of asking me to break up my family. By the way, some other people who maybe were thinking of getting a divorce would say, yeah, I'd love to join the US as a 51st state. My point is, it started that whole serious debate in Canada over what I think was basically internet prickles. Trump is a master at that bombastic style. That's the Manhattan style. Canadians are a
showman.
little bit more passive, maybe a little more thin-skinned. So I think that distracted like a million Canadians. And a million Canadians sort of took it personally. And I loved it because it was yanking Trudeau's chain. But Charlie, I'm going to agree with you. That probably cost the Conservative leader of Canada 5% in the polls. And believe me, all of us want that Conservative leader. His name is Pierre Poilievre. He's great. He would be a great international partner, a bilateral partner for America. I think that Trump knew how to needle Trudeau.
For those of you who don't know, even though I expect most of you are Canadians, Pierre Polyev, like his slogan is Canada first. And it's true. Even my dog agrees over here. Yeah. Did you hear him shouting out, Pierre? Anyway, yeah, like Canada should be first, and once you take care of the Canadians, then you can look into global politics. Obviously, who's the closest? US. And then you can look behind ocean or whatever. But the Canadians should be on the first place for government of Canada. Like, again, if you get the taxpayers' money and send it outside of the Canada, that's a treason to me. Unless the Canadians vote on it, that they want it to send somewhere else, that they're willing to take a lower quality of life, which pretty much means struggle salary to salary, sometimes even be afraid that the salary is not enough. But if they vote on it, sure. But if you just collect the crazy high taxes and then send the money outside of Canada instead of improving the situation in Canada, that's a treason to me.
But it sort of had that unintended consequence, you know.
Is this let's just say you go to a bar in Alberta. Is this the number one thing folks are talking about right now?
Well, the thing is, Alberta is the most pro-America place in Canada, and Alberta's a little nervous because
Vancouver, Montreal, just
Vancouver, everyone's high.
Yeah, I think so. I think some ordinary people are excited about the idea of becoming American. I just don't know if that's likely to happen.
No,
I think the
there's
risk
no
is
chance.
if the Liberals win again because people are confused and like some people.
I don't think that Canada will become 51st state. However, is it possible that some of the provinces might decide to move towards US in case the Liberals would get re-elected? That's a different story, right? Like he's talking about Alberta a lot. And let's say during the COVID, Alberta was the freest province of Canada. So like if the Liberals get re-elected, there might be slightly higher chance of some provinces trying to become a state of Canada. I'm not saying it's gonna happen, but yeah, like I still believe the Liberals will push a lot of people towards US. Maybe it's not gonna be the whole province becoming the part of US, but yeah, some immigration. We'll see.
People are actually saying the Americans are going to invade. I mean, I don't think serious people think that that's what's happening. I think Trump is just having some rhetorical fun. But yeah, Charlie, it is true. I think some people are freaking out. But I think that doing a deal like this, there's one more thing it gives Donald Trump. Because let me come back to the America First point of view. How did this whole trade war start? You might remember in November, President Trump tweeted to Mexico and to Canada, "Get your borders under control before I become president." And instead of doing those two simple things, Trump said, fix the fentanyl issue and stop the illegal migrants.
Do you remember what Trudeau said regarding the tariffs? He's like, oh, this month we caught only, I don't know the amount of the fentanyl, whatever is it called. But he said some small amount, and I'm like thinking like, and you're bragging about that? Shouldn't you be, oh, this month we let only this small amount of fentanyl go through the border? Like that would sound better than saying like, oh, we seized only this amount. That to me sounds like you didn't do much. Like it might be just a wordplay, like, but still, like, you want to be a little bit more careful rather than, oh, we seized only this. Say only this amount went through the border, right? That sounds better to me.
Canada should do that on our own. But instead
That's
of doing
true.
that, Trudeau wanted to fight. So if you actually did this deal of a century with Canada, it's a $13 trillion 50-year deal. But you know what President Trump could demand? He could say, if we're going to buy all this oil from you, instead of from the Persian Gulf or Brazil or Mexico or whatever, then we want you to take some of that money and reinvest in your military. We want you to remove some of your tariffs on dairy and poultry and eggs. We want you to allow American banks to set up shop on.
Okay, to be fair, the military point, I don't see how President Trump can dictate what Canada's gonna do with their money, like, oh, reinvest it to military, like, unless, like I said, you become some part of union like US and Canada, you can't really tell Canadians to invest more into the military because of this deal. Everything else is right, like the tariffs, trade deals, everything, he can negotiate that. But don't tell them what to do with the money unless you're in some part of union.
Main Street Canada. We want these basic, bilateral fairnesses. And by the way, Canadians would love that. We have terrible banks. We have the highest cell phone prices in the world. I would love it if American cell phone companies could compete up here. So if President Trump were to say to Canada, all right, we're going to do a deal for your oil. We're going to make you rich and we're going to make ourselves rich and we're going to get out of this Middle East oil business. But in return, you got to pump up your military. You got to get those F-35s. You got to patrol the north. You got to fix the border. You got to crack down on fentanyl. You got to get tougher with China. I think that's a deal that Trump could make. And that's a lot.
He could, but he won't, because he had a good relationship with Saudi, and Saudi's investing in the US a lot of money as well, right? So he's not gonna get out of OPEC. Like, there's no way. But yeah, he can definitely make a deal with Canada. Probably not for all of these trillions Ezra's talking about, but
lasting deal. I think that's a bigger deal than Greenland. I think it's a bigger deal than Panama. I just sort of hope that if President Trump looked at it like some sort of a business deal or a real estate deal and thought, okay, how do I get all the benefit of the Canadian relationship without the downsides? Yep. I think that's the winner. And I think Canadians are a little thin-skinned on that 51st state thing. It would be like asking someone married, do you want to be my girlfriend? I think that's what happened there. But that's a distraction. Let's put that aside. And thanks for having me on, Charlie, and help me promote the plan.
Yeah, I agree. That was a good interview, good take, and yeah, I think the Canadians that Ezra was talking about are the logical part of the Canadians who actually listen and see what's going on, because there's a lot of Canadians, and it's like that in every country, that people read only headlines and only the headlines that are shocking or interesting to them. They never read the whole article. So if you hear about President Trump talking about 51st state, and you're the type of the person who's not going to read into it, not going to search around, you're going to get mad. And then you're going to be on the side of the liberals, right? But let's hope this year, in this election, the Canadians will vote for a change. They're going to vote with logic and not with emotions. And then we can have a great prime minister in Pierre Poilievre. And for those of you who don't know, Pierre Poilievre he's like a Canadian version of President Trump. I mean, it's unfair to say, because I would say Pierre Poilievre is more polite, well-behaved, like more kind of ironed up. Nothing against President Trump, but he's a showman. We all know it. He wants to shock people. Pierre Poilievre is, I would say, a logical person who wants to put the Canada first and who is, I would say, very representative. So, yeah. My advice, and I know you don't care about it, but vote for the change. Vote with your common sense, and in my case it would be vote for Conservatives and Pierre Poilievre.